1, 2, fuck it, 3!
Dead Island captivated players earlier this year with a stunning trailer, which finally put the co-op Zombie Slayer on the map for many, despite being announced 5 years ago. Is this undead resort a player's paradise? Or more like an unpleasant timeshare?
Well, I'm sorry, but that's impossible.
Broken head, broken legs, body parts on the concrete.
After a wild night on the island of Banoi, you awake to find the Royal Palm Resort and the very island itself overrun by zombies, bikini-clad or otherwise. With help from some mysterious voices over the radio, you manage to find other survivors.
You there, mate? Hello? Hello?
For some reason, you're different, immune to becoming one of the Walking Dead, and thus the new hope for rescue. From there, it's a thin string of story where survival trumps narrative as you gather supplies, rescue people, and make your way through the island. There are occasional hints as to why this zombie outbreak is happening, and the story picks up speed toward the end of the game. Camp and schlock, the bread and butter of many a zombie yarn, are somewhat present, yet even a quest-giving nun fails more often than not to elicit your curiosity beyond seeing how she'll reward you. The playable characters come with lavish backstories that simmer down to background noise immediately, popping up only in cutscenes to shout stereotypical zingers.
The girl is right.
Survival is a noble goal, but this dry tale doesn't sustain your interest for the length of this big game.
That asshole just said the exact same thing those motherfuckers at the police station did.
These people are gonna help us.
The island of Banoi is large and varied, presenting dozens of hours of exploration and plenty of quests, some of which are vital to progressing the paper-thin plot, while others are just there for loot and experience. Save for a few sanctuaries, the whole place is dripping with the dead. The different areas each offer unique looks and layouts, and exploring off the beaten path can net lucrative quests and items. There are also smaller, mapless indoor zones that offer a darker, more claustrophobic and directed experience, where tensions tend to rise as your flashlight runs out of juice. These spots tend to drag on as you're locked in and required to finish specific tasks before you're let out. The quests run the gamut, from killing zombies and escorting survivors to finding teddy bears.
Teddy! Where have you been?
And turning off gushing fire hydrants. That's a lot of variety, and even during the incessant zombie killing, there's usually some flavor mixed in. Minor annoyances abound, with some unclear objectives, menu usability issues, and a messy minimap, especially when in vertical structures.
And they're just playing for their own team.
There's a lot to see and do, and even more zombies to murder, and it's all more enjoyable with a similarly leveled friend or three. Co-op is available almost immediately and allows up to 4 players to cruise the mean streets of Banoi, complete quests, trade, and heal fallen allies. You can easily see what quest your partner is on, as well as teleport to them at key points and pick up the slack when they're winded. You can even ride shotgun in one of the many vehicles. Enemies get harder as you add players, and they scale to your level as well, meaning the game always offers a challenge. As a result, XP grinding is non-existent, and you'll always be able to tackle any mission you encounter. While it would have been nice to be able to slaughter some low-level zomblings, it's even nicer to be able to progress at your own pace without hitting artificial barriers. Dead Island's creative objectives and changing environments more than make up for the lackluster story and interface oversights. It's a game that can take scores of hours to complete, and there's plenty of replayability after the campaign is finished as you try to max out your level and acquire the best gear and collectibles.
Ow!
Do exactly as I say, okay? You're gonna have to trust me.
So how does one actually go about surviving on the Isle of the Dead? While there are firearms, Dead Island has a penchant for melee. The characters all have their own specialization, be it guns, blades, or blunt weapons, and skill trees to further distinguish and customize them. No one is really stuck in any particular role, however, making any and all weapons desirable. And you'll need your tools. Melee weapons break a little with each swing, and you'll need to spend cash to repair, mod, and upgrade them. Don't get too attached, since over time, better weapons, both common and rare, will replace that axe you spent a couple grand on. Scavenging for greenbacks, weapons, and recipe parts is an ongoing chore that rewards mechanical thoroughness more than the ability to spot hidden caches. Food and energy drinks act as small heals, with medkits being particularly rare and expensive. Capitalism still rules supreme even during the apocalypse, and you'll lose 10% of your cash if you die. Speaking of dying, we ran into some bad bugs in the review build we played, which frequently caused us to spawn in unexplored and hostile territory, sometimes right in the middle of a pack of enemies. Deep Silver has stated that these bugs will be addressed with the Day 1 patch, but we didn't receive that update for our review.
See that greedy bastard?
It is the end of days.
Dispatching zombies can take a lot of hacks, slashes, shots, and shivs. And while headshots do more damage, be prepared to dance with the dead while managing your stamina as you land each blow. This can get particularly annoying late in the game when you play solo and face more zombies. But even if you run out of viable options, you always have your fists and feet. Kicking takes no stamina, so it's always a viable option, but it does puny damage if you don't dump points into it. Be prepared to climb cars and kick zombies in the face when things get rough. Every weapon has a real sense of weight to it, and the adventurous can try the optional analog melee controls, which might lend you some tactical advantages, but can take a good bit of getting used to. You'll slice and dice many a limb from many a zombie, and there's a ton of different looking zombies, but only a handful of types. The typical zombies are the walkers, making up the bulk of the troop. Then there are fast-infected, brutish thugs, exploding suiciders, and puke-filled floaters, plus a few more in the later levels. Their numbers quickly end up being more impressive than their uniqueness, with any individual zombie being easy to dispatch. There are a handful of encounters with human enemies that bring out the gunplay and distance game, and these targets thankfully drop more reasonably to a well-placed headshot.
Kill those fuckers!
Driving through hordes of zombies, jumping out to loot their corpses before finishing a quest and leveling up is a common occurrence in Dead Island, one that practically ticks boxes off the digital mayhem checklist. The game's economy and loot do much to keep things challenging and interesting, and if you play in brief bursts, the repetition of constant scavenging and wall-to-wall combat doesn't mar the experience. Extended sessions are best played with friends though, lest you resort to canning zombies to death.
My muscles are starting to cramp up.
Dead Island's Chrome engine is uneven. Human characters have a marionette-like sheen, and the lush locations are characterized by plentiful pop-up. The zombies and their maimed limbs do the genre justice though, and punching out the damaged glass of a windshield looks pretty amazing the first time. If you like cars, get used to seeing it again and again. The voice acting is earnest enough, but the quips come at such a high frequency, you'll want to avoid other survivors.
You look like you've been to the bloody ringer.
Soloists might enjoy a long weekend on Dead Island, but this isn't a game for the separate vacations crowd. The combination of Twitch action with an MMO's girth, minus the grind, cements the game as co-op classic. There's some brain-dead repetition as you down brain eaters, but the rising challenge and resource management means you'll always be mindful of your tasks.
We're staying with the plan, or I'm taking the car and you're on your own.